let's talk about everything there is to talk about and just paint that picture. Paint the picture, kid. All right, I've got so many things to beautifully paint with here. Okay, let's start with Bitcoin. I mean, we can start with anything, but we'll start with Bitcoin. ABC correction, right? Is this the bottom? Here's what I said last week. I think it might be the bottom. Now, the only reason why I would consider that it's not the bottom, check this out, right? Just weaving the story, painting the picture. The only reason I would say it's not the bottom is because it did not hit the inverse 1.618. Now, that would make sense. If this is an ABC correction, a C heart wrencher correction, where do C heart wrenchers corrections reach to? They reach to the 1.618. And you have a perfect triangle ratio between the A leg and the B leg if this is, in fact, an ABC correction. What else would it be, I guess, would be my main question. If it's not an ABC correction, what else would it be? Okay, so if we can acknowledge that, then let's get some corroboration points for why there could be more downside in Bitcoin to the 1618 or why there might not be. Equally both things, right? Painting the picture of equals and opposites. Okay, so look at how all of these dates are so similar, right? Top of NASDAQ is November, just like the top of Bitcoin over here is November. Just, November. Big bullish little moments here in November. Remember, New Cipher popped like psychopathy back in November. And obviously, we know what's going on with New Cipher. If you've been paying attention to that, I'm sure many of you have, obviously. So it's like, okay, so NASDAQ, right? Bullish time in November. So what could this possibly be? This is obviously an ABC correction as well. Not super particularly hard to see, right? And let's just talk about how the mind trip works on this, right? So remember back here, I was like, oh, the ABC correction is over, right? Here we are, ripping into this new wave 1 into a giant impulsive wave 3 move. This wave 3, which I thought was a wave 3, turned out not to be a wave 3, and it actually just turned out to be the B leg in an ABC correction. That's how it goes, right? But I don't care, right? If I was buying here and I was bullish here and I took profits here because I sold into strength, you make those obvious decisions to make your portfolio optimize, because even if this was actually a wave 3, I'm taking profits either way because I know wave 3 is pulling back no matter how you slice it. So you get a massive rip on strength, and then this sucker is going way, way down in the dirt, and that turns out to be the real C heart wrencher. And notice how you know it's a C heart wrencher because you already thought you hit the bottom. So it wrenches your heart super bad. Now check this out. Back to our 1.618s. Remember the 1.618. If I inverse that Fibonacci, look at how the NASDAQ respected it already. And how many times have we been talking about? Now, lately, our new thesis is that NASDAQ and Bitcoin are seriously in lockstep. They're seriously in lockstep. So the main question you've got to ask yourself is, if NASDAQ already hit the 1.618 and it's likely to be pulling back, and big assumption to be made that this is the completion of that ABC correction. We don't know that. We can't know that. We technically had it wrong up here. If I was with conviction saying that this was the bottom of the C heart wrencher, but you know what? My heart wasn't wrenched hard enough. My heart got wrenched hard enough down here, but at least I was ready in the sense that I had managed my risk properly. I'd managed my money properly. So in a way, I hedged against both directions, right? Like this eventually, we're going to bust out of here, right? And where are we headed when we bust out of here? Eventually, the most likely target, based on this huge macro scenario we've been talking about, is the 1.618 up here. That's the first macro scenario. But look at all these different places you want to be taking profits to manage your money properly. Right? It's all about the 1.618. That's the lesson of today. So NASDAQ already reached out to 1.618 on this downside swing, right? So it makes a lot of sense that it might have the low. The low might be set on the NASDAQ. Man, and I might eat my words, but think about how the 1.618 is exactly at the 702 on this macro fractal. I mean, there's a really good confluence. Plus, this is a textbook ABC correction. In textbook in the sense that your heart got wrenched. Nobody can deny, no matter how well you manage your risk, everybody got their heart wrenched. That's a good sign. That's a good sign that our hearts were wrenched enough for that ABC correction to be complete. And plus, we've got our levels that are relevant here, the 702 level on this huge, like, multi-decade fractal here, right? But it goes back to the 70s. Go back to the old videos if you want to look back in the 70s. I'm not trying to get back in history. I've done 2 videos on history. I'm looking in the moment right now. I'm looking at the intermediate phase of the market we're in. And think about how beautiful the moment is if you are, in fact, at the bottom of this C heart wrench correction, and now you are going to finish off these Elliott waves, right? So that's why I think the low could be in for Bitcoin. Now, the thing to consider here is that NASDAQ is going to be pulling back in a wave at some point. So let's start to zoom in and see where we think NASDAQ is going to go so that I can tie into what my strategy with Bitcoin and altcoins are, right? Because stuff is popping off. New Cipher is popping off. What am I doing with New Cipher? I'll get there. I'll explain. But what do we first see happening in the NASDAQ that's going to tell us about what's about to happen next week? On Monday. Like, there's so much anticipation for everything that's going on right now. Like, stuff is going to play out, right? So what do I look at? If this really is the bottom right here, and we literally hit, we don't even need to worry about if that's the bottom or not right now. Let's just look at local wave counts. This is a very impulsive move, and I crystal clear see a 5-wave Elliott impulse. I'm sure you might as well. It's literally screaming right in your face. Watch this. That's off the bottom. I mean, that's the most textbook market Elliott wave we see. It doesn't get more classic than that, right? So you literally have the wave 2 that almost breaks that wave 1, and you're like, oh, we're going to hell. Nope. We're going into a 3 impulse, and that's what that was, right? So then you have top of wave 3, ABC corrects, right? Like A, B, C, a bit lower, and then 5 completes just a little bit higher than 3. So what are we in right now? What do I think this is? Well, I think this is an ABC correction because obviously, right? So if that's the top of wave 5, I do think that impulse has completed. And then you've completed the A leg of the ABC correction, right? The A leg is complete. Now you're in the B leg of the ABC correction, right? And to have the C leg, it's going to wrench you, and that wrench is about a 1.618. So I'm just, eyeballing Fibonacci's right now, but I'll measure them just to see, right? So we expect the B leg to come to the 702 level. There it is. And so how do we know where that C leg going? It is going to this inverse 1.618 level, right? There we go. We see all the things that make sense here. Okay. So if we see that, now let's just get rid of this. It's a little messy. So if we see all that, we can see that. Look at that. June 6th. Yep. I would expect this gap right here to fill on Monday, June 6th. To be like super bullish, right? Oh man, everyone's gonna pile in right here because be like, oh, the gap's getting filled. Oh, we're going to wherever. Like, oh, the bull market, and the bull market is very much on. First of all, if that's my thesis and bias has been bullish since day one because of all these Fibonacci's and Elliott wave implications. Like you're gonna have nasty volatile corrections, but the more volatile and nasty these corrections are, I mean, they're reflected on the upside of the trade as well. So these are all accumulation opportunities. So all this to say, yep, looks like Monday could be an up day, I would think, because you're going to fill a gap, right? Once you fill that gap, I would say that's going to be the signal where you start to see heart wrencher, and look where that C heart wrencher goes. Another gap to be filled down here. I mean, come on, are they giving us the keys to the kingdom here? I mean, we don't know. We can't say that. We can never be too confident with any one thesis. All theses could be subverted, on the drop of a dime. But that's why conviction is so important. If you are anchored to conviction and you literally have like an essential conviction, then you can make sense of everything that's going to happen. I mean, I could be talking about delusion right now, right? The dark side of what I'm talking about is like literal delusion. But that's the game we're playing when we deal with conviction. Always the risk of delusion is in conviction if you have real conviction. So that's a risk I'm willing to freaking take out here, right? But I do see a lot of reasons to be incredibly optimistic and bullish that we've now completed the heart wrencher on the macro level. Okay, so for this is what I think is going on, coming into the week here. We got to see heart wrencher correction that could go into June 7th, but then we could freaking pop out of here and start going, because this is all the way 4 down, right? Hopefully I haven't lost you with my fractal thinking, right? Because this is all just a wave 1, right? So then when you go into a wave 2, and that wave 2 might not pull back that far based on that C correction where I put it. And then you go into wave 3. Whereas wave 3 probably goes somewhere around these 702s, you know? This is what's kind of setting up here. And I'm looking at an inverse Fibonacci chart, by the way, based on this bigger, you know how these fractals go, but this is how you should think. And what does that look like to you? Does that not look like a V bottom correction? Yeah, it sort of does. And that would also imply that this is all just a wave 1, right? This is how the fractals work. They just go. All wave 1, you're going to get resistance coming up here, right? You always get resistance because these things moves in waves, right? You know what I mean? Something like this. Now I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but these are my essential theses. And check this out. If I'm just trying to predict where wave counts are headed, well, I know local 1.618s are really, really good levels to target. So where do I think this local, where do I think we're going to end up, over the next few months? Look at this. This is September. This should keep going. This is like October, November, right? Another bullish fall to complete the local 618. And guess what could happen up here, right? We could get the worst news of all time. You know what? The Fed dumping, right? How many times have we talked about the Fed? Or we haven't really talked about it too much, but on the news, the best narrative that goes around is like, the Fed is going to unload their balance sheet. Yeah, you better believe they're going to unload their balance sheet, but they're going to dump it on retail investors who get sucked in around the 1.618. You know what the 1.618 represents? It represents where the whales dump. They dump at 1.618. And that's probably what the Fed is going to do when they keep talking about unloading their balance sheets, right? They're not going to unload it now. The joke is, it's like they're trying to scare everybody so they can load up and they ride up to this 1.618, right? But they're going to dump later. So they're trying to make us think they're going to dump now and scare people out and get deeper into this market because they want to make money on this pump. And where could they be targeting? I'm telling you, the 1.618 is the whale target. So if that's where the whale, this just keeps going. I could do this forever. I could just keep doing wave fractals forever. They just go. They just rip out of here. You know what I mean? Like, blah, I won't even go all there. It's so easy to get ahead of yourself. But you ask yourself, okay, what are these waves playing out here? But what's the narrative that's going to support this like crushing heartbreaker? Yeah, I would expect a crusher heartbreaker. That's a perfect accumulation point, blah, 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 blah. If you see where these waves move in and out, you can sell the tops and you can buy the bottoms and stuff. So we likely are in a massive bottoming process, I would say, in this macro vision that I have stayed convicted to. Okay, so what does that mean for Bitcoin in the near future? Well, here's what I think it literally means for Bitcoin in the actual near future. We may see this 1.618 Fibonacci prophecy actually get tagged, or we may have completed it, and this is good enough. Either way, I would say there's not much more downside. I would say that 1.618 is your downside target. You're not going to go much lower than that. Now, where could you go from here? Well, if the NASDAQ has upside in that B correction, it's coming into the B leg. That's an up leg within the ABC correction. What could Bitcoin be doing? Almost looks like it's forming some kind of W pattern. You see that? Do you see that? It almost looks like it's forming a W pattern right here, a bearish W. I mean, maybe my eyes are just whatever, but what if that's what's going on with Bitcoin? Can't even see that. Oh, let me zoom way in. What if that's what's going on with Bitcoin right here? Forming a bearish W pattern, and it completes that bearish W pattern right when NASDAQ starts to get sucked down on maybe that ABC correction, that C heart wrencher, look at those dates, June 8th. So you're looking at Monday being a bullish day, right? This is my prediction, I guess. Don't take it as any advice at all, but my prediction would be on Monday, you might have a seriously bullish day on Monday, actually. But that day leads to just heart wrenchers. All the people who got sucked in and they just got dumped on, or they actually just got, the short sellers just swarmed them, right? The short sellers swarming these bearish W patterns, and they're going to start seeing them. And they also know their wave counts. So I do think there's going to be buying pressure in predictable places. So that means Bitcoin could just get just pounded, and it could really get sucked down pretty bad because, it's leverage. Like, it's a leverage play on the NASDAQ. If NASDAQ is doing these little corrections here, Bitcoin could just get rocked. And then what could get rocked even harder are altcoins, right? But here's the thing. I think a lot of altcoins have maybe put in a bottom, right? I do think a lot of the altcoins have put in a bottom. So that means if Bitcoin is going to be getting sucked to hell because of something like this, and it has this C to D leg, this bullish impulsive move that could show up here in line with the NASDAQ. I mean, it could be so freaking wrong, so on the opposite side of truth right now. And I'm not even, there's not even necessarily that I have money on the line here. I'm thinking about how there's still more 1.618 gravity for Bitcoin. There's still more downside just because of this gravity target. I don't know if we're going to hit the gravity target, but if NASDAQ is going down, we see all these confluences of Bitcoins to go down after it has an impulsive move. So like, don't get fooled by this. And you could see it as a situation where like altcoins are starting to move, right? Especially the ones that have already popped out of areas. So if Bitcoin has this thing where it could be going up, upwards into June 8th, am I crazy in thinking that NuCypher might have a continuation in that before it gets slammed, before it gets absolutely slammed? So what could NuCypher be doing if we think about it in terms of Elliott waves? Well, this is obviously an impulse. I mean, what is this? This might be a wave 3, right? If I'm being as conservative as possible, this is probably a wave 3, right? Wave 1, see, top of wave 3, and wave 4. And there's where you could see. And where do we think that wave 5 could be? It's probably a 1.618, right? Of this cycle completion. That's probably the 1.618 of this little impulsive move here. And I overshot it there, but right about there is probably where you expect NuCypher to turn around. It's more in line with Bitcoin and NASDAQ's time, and that could happen sooner than later. And then just get absolutely slammed like a nasty, nasty ABC correction that just wrenches everybody who didn't really see it coming, but I'm calling out why I see it coming, right? Look at how the Fibonacci's help us so much. This B could be nothing. It could be right. It could get just stopped, right? Or whatever. These things don't always have to do it like that, And then this one just goes like, who knows? The C heart wrencher, it's an inverse 1.618, potentially something like this, right? Always notice, measure between the A leg and the B leg, and you can find those downside targets to complete those C heart wrencher corrections. So this C, I overshot that by really, really far. But yeah, something like this, maybe, right? I'm just making predictions for fun, just for fun to see how these play out, because I do think we're getting increasing clarity. I would say at this time, I personally think that the market is the clearest it's ever been, but I do understand that clarity can be subverted at any moment. Right. I do think we're getting increasing clarity the farther we go down in this hellacious correction we've been in. But that volatility to the downside is reflected. Oh, my God, is reflected to the upside. But look how messy this chart is now. Whew. But okay, that gives me a cue to zoom out here so we don't have to look at all this messiness. Just to see where the macro thesis is implying us here, where the macro thesis is taking us. So my macro thesis remains bullish, and maybe if you see it from this angle, you can see why, right? Because we've talked about, I'm just reviewing again, but I don't mind reviewing this. It's important to say these things. Look at this giant, clear 5-wave impulse pattern that we're in, right? Wave 1 up, this is 2 down. We're in a wave 3 up. That 3 is taking us to the 1.618 if I measure from the 236 below. Why am I doing this measurement? We talked about this with Microsoft, with Apple. We talked about this with Bitcoin. This measurement is a relevant measurement. We have a lot of reason to believe that this is the proper measurement for this move as opposed to this measurement, which we tend to use on local structures. The simple understanding of these measurements, which I'm coming to the conclusion of, is that this is a local measurement, right? If you measure from top to bottom from here like this is a local measurement. This is what you do on those smaller time frames. But the macro time frames, they play by this rule. This is what we've seen in Amazon. We've seen this in Microsoft. We've seen this in Apple. We've seen this in Bitcoin, Ethereum. We've seen these levels get respected. But when I'm trying to navigate waves on these little smaller levels, I'm using the smaller measuring tool, because it seems to be that those smaller measuring tools are really dialed in with waves right now. And it makes sense. Like, the farther we go in this market cycle, this market cycle that's been going on for, the tech cycle, since it's at least 1971, even before that, when it was just the New York Stock Exchange. People have been trading like technology, but like, I would say the bull market of technology, in a way, it makes a lot of macro sense that it's not over yet. And so if it's not over yet, we can see that the Fibonacci levels and the Elliott waves are really dialed into that self-fulfilled prophecy, which is that people have learned them and people have used them and people have made so much money predicting how markets are moving using these tools. And that's how they become the self-fulfilling prophecy that only gets farther entrenched. So what am I going to do this week? Well, I'm playing it like I think KNUCKL3 is setting up for this 1.618 based on this local structure, right? We had a wave 1, wave 2. We just completed that wave 3. And now you're going to finish off at 1.618. And I'm going to totally take a lot of profits right there. Obviously. How could I not? And I'm going to try to increase my position on KNUCKL3. But you can see like a lot of altcoins, you know, so many, not just KNUCKL3, a lot of altcoins are sort of in that, they're completing that wave 2 down, right? What is GRT doing relative to what KNUCKL3 just sort of showed us? Well, I think, you know, GRT could have completed a wave 2 right here and could be setting up to do a wave 3, a powerful wave 3 to just show, to really clearly change that trend direction. And why do we even think that the trend direction is changing on something like GRT or KNUCKL3 even, instead of just being like a short squeeze? Well, first of all, because this first daily candle was really bullish. I mean, it was huge trading volume. It was almost fully engulfed. I mean, it doesn't look like a short squeeze. It's holding up here. So I would say, maybe I'm just, my bias is blinding me to the truth, but I would say that this indicates, you know, we have reached the bottom for many altcoins. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of altcoins are setting up a 5-wave impulse that will keep them on a higher low. You know, when they come down off of these, they will have made a higher high and a higher low, even if Bitcoin gets wrenched. And that sort of aligns with the market dominance leaving Bitcoin for altcoins that have already proven like they're going to have a lot of strength in this next up leg of the market. And no one knows how high that up leg is going to go. But I do think people, I mean, not just me, but many, many people are seeing like, okay, if we're not at the bottom, we're seriously close to the bottom, and you want to be accumulating because you don't want to risk missing this impulsive upside. And it sure does look impulsive to me. I mean, it does, right? This giant wicked monthly candle, that's a bullish candle. Yeah, it closed red. Proceed with caution. But that is a bullish, hardcore bullish monthly candle. And we're starting the month off red. You can see that, yeah, you're going to need some pullbacks here, right? You got a giant gap to fill that you can see on the daily chart. So if we're zoomed out here and we're looking at waves out here, I know you're probably so bored with this stuff. I'm not bored with it. This is, I said before, I do this for my own. I need to do this for me, you know. Hopefully it helps you guys too. But I would say that that C heart wrencher corresponds to that wave 2 down gap fill right here, right? Come on. You can see it crystal clear on the daily chart. So where do we think? Yeah, wave 3 could be nasty, right? We could do 1.618s, right? 1.618 being somewhere around here, which is the distance implied between waves 1 and 2, right? To get a wave 3. But we know wave 3s are really impulsive. And if this is the bottom, and we think that's a bottom, then we should expect wave 3 to be a hell of a lot bigger than wave 1, right? Right? Something like this. Maybe getting up to this sort of resistance, you know, previous, this previous barrier at the top of this wave B, you know, that you see over here, right? And that pulls us back, you know, or something like this. Just maybe I'm getting way too ahead of myself here, but look at these dates, you know, I'm not thinking, I mean, I'm on the daily chart here. Yeah, this could be a massively bullish little time here, you know, over the next month here, if this impulsive move really marked the bottom. And we'll know if it did by, honestly, by the 7th or the 8th, by Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, even, you know, could drag out longer or whatever, you know, who knows? But we're going to know probably by the end of this week if this is just, you know, what they call, quote unquote, a bear market rally, or is it really a strong wave 1, right? So, you know, things will be clear pretty soon with the macro picture, but I think you're getting hints. You're getting a lot of hints. KNUCKL3 is a hint. I'm not surprised that this thing is rocketing out of here. Obviously, you guys shouldn't be surprised that this isn't surprising. I've been bullish on KNUCKL3 for like 3 years. Nah, only 2 years. 3 years is an exaggeration. But yeah, I mean, this is just doing what I always hoped it would do. And this, I said last week, you know, like KNUCKL3 back around 14 cents. Yep, you should freaking be averaging down there. Even if you bought up here, I don't freaking care. I'm just adding to my bags of KNUCKL3, you know, like this is a coin that I think is going to go the distance, and you're seeing it pop out of here when we're starting to see that tech move to the upside, right? You're seeing the tech assets start to make their moves, the ones that are asserting their dominance. They're like, yo, I'm here for this. I'm here for this. If you've got a wave one coming out of here in tech, Bitcoin doesn't seem to be super strong with it, but then you see some altcoins starting to get strong with it, and you're like, okay, now I start to see how altcoin season happens. You start to see that these large market cap assets are bleeding into these small market cap assets because these small, strong, fundamental, but small cap assets have huge upside. You know, obviously massive risk, right? But I'm not afraid of that on something like NewsCipher. I've done my homework, you know, but a lot of other people have too. And so you're starting to see that. You're starting to see evidence of that. And yeah, so I'm bullish on the market, period. And I'm not afraid to be subverted again and realize that, you know, I'll scare you real quick. Let me just finish off the video with a scary thought. It's okay. We shouldn't be afraid of fear, you know? Don't be afraid of fear, obviously. What if this is all just this? Which is all is this? Oh, here's the sea heart wrencher, right? What if all that's that? I don't think it's that, dude. I literally don't think it's that. I just don't think it's that. Because this, on the monthly chart, all of this little V is a wick down. It means nothing. And the wick got stopped at the 702 level, right? The wick got stopped at the 702 level. Dude, it doesn't make as much sense that it's going to go lower. That's just not a statistical probability. People aren't betting on that, right? The good news is that you're probably in a giant upside wave either way. And we can assess the reality once we get up here, right? Once we start to face resistance, right? We can look at two different places that we may face resistance. We could face resistance at the 786, right? So if we face resistance at the 786, well, yeah, maybe that could imply, yeah, you're going to have your sea heart wrencher hasn't wrenched you enough, right? That could imply that. But I think a key level to break through would be that 786, this level right here. This is the 786 line that I'm looking at. If we do what I just kind of impulsively drew on this wave count here, and you really just rip through the 786 like it's toilet paper, and then maybe you come back later, test as resistance, that would be incredibly bullish, right? That would really sort of add to the evidence that you are going to make a new all-time high, and that new all-time high is probably going to be a local 1618 to start, and then you'll have a horrifying rejection after the 1.618, a ton of bearish nightmarishness, but that's all just to gear up to hit this bigger macro 1.618. All right, so I think I've beat the drum loud enough for you today. And if you really want to understand everything, you should watch this video and the last two videos and literally just like accept that you might need to watch them more than once. Because honestly, I really think the information that I'm giving in here, it's going to prove to be very, 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 very valuable. And if you just never lost sight of the prize, never lost sight of your conviction, no matter how volatile and ugly this gets, and you never lost sight of the conviction, then you haven't lost a cent in this entire down move. Literally, dude. Literally. I know. I sometimes think I'm like, you know, all these traders talk about, oh, I lost like $300,000, you know, before I made any money. It's like, dude, what if you haven't lost any money? Am I missing something? Am I missing something here? I sold in the strength. I'm not trying to day trade. I'm selling obvious strength. And I'm using Fibonacci's and wave counts to guide me in that. And I'm going to buy those weaknesses based on inverse 1.618s. Okay, so that's what it's all about here. All right, this was an inverse 1.618. This tells us the most information. This is such an epic macro clue to the kingdom. It's all a wave 4 down, but look how this wave 4 ABC correction played by its Fibonacci rules and hit up a 1.618 on a clear 3-wave move to the downside. I mean, we got the keys here. Stay anchored to the conviction. That way all the variations of wave counts don't scare you, and you see the opportunity, and you don't see anything but opportunity. So get ready to walk straight into golden abundance, kid. Good.
Passing time is an open canvas, and the secret to the Fibonacci prophecy.
phase of the market here.